If I'm going to create my own version of success in this life, I want to feel fulfilled. I want to feel fulfilled and I want to feel love around me. Because if I'm just trying to achieve, and I've let go of my health and I've let go of healthy relationships and I've let go of my connection to God, then like, what does any of it matter? Hello, my love. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast here on YouTube. I am going to ask you to take just a moment before enjoying this episode and go and hit the subscribe button. It not only helps the show, but it helps the channel. And I only want to continue to bring you incredible content and beautiful video content here on the YouTube. So just take a moment before enjoying the episode and hit subscribe. Thank you. Hello, my gorgeous. Welcome back to another episode of Natalia Benson, the podcast. It is so wonderful to be with you again. I am coming to you for I guess this would be my annual birthday episode. So by the time this episode comes out, it will be the day before my actual birthday. And I will be 39 years old. And if you have listened to the show over the years, I typically do an episode every year on or around my birthday where I just share like what I've learned or something that feels really relevant. And I thought it would be really powerful for this episode specifically. I wanted to take you through just everything that I feel like I've learned around like health, entrepreneurship and money, my family and my parents, relationships and romance, friendships, and then how I feel about my 20s versus my 30s. And it's kind of crazy to think about this, but this is the last year of my 30s. I have one more year before I turn 40 years old. And I remember when I was really young and my mom was 37 and I was very little and I had some semblance of memory. I just remember thinking that 37 was ancient. Like I was like, that's really, really old. And I know I'm not 37, I'm 39, but it's like just this whole era of time. I'm just like, holy moly. Like when I was younger, I would have thought that like the late 30s were like a very, very old age. And it's so funny because even for me, like just going through all the changes that I've gone through and being, single again in my late 30s, I feel this is going to sound so interesting, but it's like, I just feel like everything for me has just been like perfectly on time. Like when I think about the process of my life, I'm like, wow, everything has happened like in this total perfect symphonic type of way, meaning like I don't really look back and regret anything or feel like I've ever been too early or too late in my life, especially now being 39. And when I'm recording this, I'm still 38, but by the time you hear this, I will be one day away from being 39. But it's interesting because it's like being in this 39th year, I feel like the most powerful and the most connected to myself that I have ever felt. And I look at every single mistake and process and like so many different aspects of my life journey. And I'm just like, wow, everything had to happen the way that it's happened. So I could develop exactly the way that I've developed and I'm continuing to grow and learn. So I'm also want to have a little celebratory moment with you as well, my loves, because it is exactly 1 year ago that I brought Envy the podcast back. So I've had this podcast for about 7 years, but as many of you know, I took a 1 year break and that was one of the hardest years of my life. I had mold exposure, I had failed IVF, I lost my dad, and that was all right before I got divorced. So it was just like that year of taking a pause. I think the episode is still live in the archives somewhere, but I literally record an episode and I'm like crying because I was like, I don't know why I feel like I have to stop, but I just feel like I'm supposed to stop. I feel like I'm not supposed to do this. And like, thank God that I did because I really needed that time. to go through those things and recalibrate. And, here I am. This is 2 years later that I made that decision, and 1 year back with the podcast. And it's just so good to be back. And I just feel like taking that pause and that break helped me really discover and anchor into like who I really am. And that's, of course, an ever evolving process. But yeah, so I'm excited, my loves, to talk to you about like what 39 years have taught me. And I'm just going to go like section by section. So I figured that I would talk about health. I actually did an episode last year that is actually one of the most popular episodes of 2025. And it was about my body transformation. And I really take you through like the whole ins and outs, because for me, it wasn't just the physical transformation of my physique. It was the healing that went on at a really deep core visceral level that was the cultivation of the physical transformation. Because as I mentioned in that episode, and I'll definitely speak into a bit of what I shared there in this episode because it feels relevant and important, but I in the past had tried to change before. I had tried to like get to a certain weight or look a certain way and like just will my body into submission through so much judgment and self-hatred. And what I really learned in going through a full-blown body transformation and doing what's called like a body recomp is that it had everything to do with like love and devotion and nothing to do with hatred and judgment. I tried to do it through the hatred and judgment thing before, and it never freaking worked. It only worked. And I share this because it only worked because I really started to come from the place of like, this is my health. And I've talked about this on the show before, but very simply, my dad, he passed away from lymphoma, which is cancer of the lymph glands. And I'm sure, I think so many of you angels in this community, you're very into health and wellness, like me, but for anyone, and this is just a refresher and it never hurts to hear it a million times, but the lymph system is so unbelievably important. And the lymphatic system, this system cannot be like cleansed through anything other than movement. Basically, the lymph is like the trash system of the body. And when the lymph glands, and we have like major lymph glands and we have minor lymph glands like all over the body, but there are major lymph glands like behind the knees, at the groin, all around the stomach. There are lymph glands underneath the armpits. There are major lymph glands in the throat. And I do a lot of body brushing. And so I'll like tap all of the major lymph points before I body brush. And I also do that before I go into the sauna. And this just helps wake up the lymph system. And the lymph moves this. And the reason I share this is because this is like a really just important part of health. And then I'll get back to sharing about the context of my dad. But what I've learned about the lymph system is that it really is like a really powerful way to take the most magnificent care of your body. And I have always, and I also feel that cellulite is very genetic, but I have definitely I also have a butt. If you haven't ever seen it on Instagram, my stories, I don't share it often, but when I started to do my body recomp, I was like, this booty here, this is very genetic, but I also will say, as I smack my butt as I'm recording this podcast, but also, through my body recomp journey and with my trainer Haven, we really, this thing is wild. And it's very Aries too. I always joke with my Aries best friends. I'm like, what's with Aries and the butts? Like, I'm just like blown away by the butts. It's so funny. And Krista, one of my best friends, always loves to make fun of my butt in like a sweet way, of course, but it's just like, it's really funny. And through the weight training, it's just become very pronounced. But I share about my butt on my 39th birthday episode, because very simply, with making this thing a little bit more heavy in terms of like the muscle and the muscular structure, it's also been really interesting to see how it will like weigh on the part of my leg where cellulite is. And I say this because, my mom has always really helped me with this too. And just like body image stuff, but she's like, Natalia, having cellulite is part of being a woman. And I have also learned over the years that there are ways to take care and heal cellulite on the body. Because one thing I learned from one of my favorite, I love I've been touching my butt the entire time I've been saying this, but one of my favorite naturopaths, Dr. Sarah, she, especially when I had the mold exposure and I was just in a really, really rough way in like 2023, 2024, she really helped me understand like why I had certain cellulite forming on the back of my legs. And it was literally because of like oils, ways that I was eating. I was sitting a lot for work. Like even recording this episode right now, I'm standing. I have a standing desk and I stand a lot while I work because it's just a good way to keep circulation in the legs. So with all of that being said, and my queen, Dr. Sarah, I just started learning, okay, how can I take care of my body in the highest and healthiest and best ways and do it through love and accepting certain aspects of my body, both the things that I've naturally been given, things that are just genetically inclined, like looking at my parents, looking at my family. You know, my mom is quite curvaceous. She's very, very athletic. She's very, very active, I'll say. She's like, I call her Pickleball Paula. She's just like so active. It's so beautiful. And she's always been quite curvy and just, she's like, I have her body. And I also got my dad's body. My dad is very long and he's very lean. It's weird that I'm so tall because neither of my parents, I would say, are especially tall. But I share all of this to say because understanding what I've been given genetically and working within like the realm of self-acceptance of just like, okay, this is my body, this is the frame, this is what my soul is inhabiting this time around. And how can I take care of this machine, this divine gift, in the best way that I can? And so learning things about like lymphatic drainage, learning things about like dry brushing, sauna, taking care of my skin. I am a water fiend. I probably go pee. I wonder sometimes if I go pee way too much because I'm just like, God, I drink so much water. But hydration, I mean, the one compliment I get all of the time, which is just it's an honor, is my skin. And some of that is, again, it's a little bit genetic because my mom has very, very beautiful skin. But also, again, I've taken care of what I've been given. And I share this, my loves, because especially as I get older and like my beauty is going to change over time and things are going to change. And if you see me, and I'm going to be very honest, this is something I never talk about because I just frankly don't care to have any kind of, feedback on it. But, my skin also, I have not had a lot of wrinkles formed because I have gotten Botox since I was 30 years old. And I share this, and it's, again, like I would say a healthy boundary that I have is it's something I don't share because it's not something that I feel that I need to promote. It's just something as a decision I've made for myself. But I share it especially now because as I'm getting into my 39th year, my 40th year on this earth, this is not a natural thing. Like I do, like when I smile, I have my smile lines and I have there's definitely things that show my age. And I've also had Botox for many, many years. And what that does is it doesn't allow really, really deep stuff to form. And I was questioning if I was going to even share that on this episode, but honestly, it's just something that I've done for a very long time. And as I said, it's not something I talk about because I don't want to promote it as something that everyone needs to do. It's just a personal choice and something that I like to do for myself. And I really love the results that it's created over the years. And honestly, if you know about it and you see me, you're probably like, that tracks, because to be 39 years old and to have skin like this that just doesn't really have a lot of like grooves in it, that is not a natural thing. And so I also say that because as I age and I continue to grow older, because the plan is just to continue on for as long as I'm meant to be on this earth, I also recognize that there will be seasons of my life where I also get to really make peace with the aging process. And I'll be very vulnerable and very honest that I don't totally know what that looks like yet. I don't drink alcohol. I take care of myself in a really, really powerful way. And I mentioned the no alcohol because I've noticed, and I've seen this of just being around for a little while, that in the seasons of my life when I have drank alcohol, it's very, very hard on my body. It's very hard on my energetic system, and it's very, very hard on my skin. And so I've chosen to not drink simply because it just makes me feel better. And I also have a lot of responsibility, running my life and showing up for you, angels, and doing the things that I do in my work that I just simply can't afford to be slowed down. But there are definitely things that I'm doing to really take care of my collagen. And it's interesting living in Southern California because this is such a youth-oriented place, and it's also a very active place. So there's definitely unique pressures in that way, none of which I'd say really bother me. However, I do also have the internal conversation with myself and with God universe where I'm like, and I know as I continue to move through this life, and God willing, I have a long, healthy life ahead of me, because each year it's just going towards, the end, whenever that is for me. But it's just like, I also have to recognize as a woman, how do I also accept and love who I am? And how do I accept and love the natural aspects of the aging process while still doing things that make me personally feel confident and feel my best, and just being willing to make those choices for self. And while also something that continues to come up for me is also, how can I continue to authentically love myself at my core, even when I don't feel my best self, even when I don't feel like I'm my most beautiful. And so I share this in the health section because these are not only things that I've learned and the ways that I take care of myself, but these are also internal things that I explore. And I like to do it, especially in terms of the no drinking and the way that I eat. I also mainly eat at home. That is something that took me a really long time because I love eating out. I love going out to eat. I love a gorgeous restaurant. I mean, I love getting dressed. It's one of my favorite things. And it's easy to eat out in LA and eat healthy. But I have definitely noticed over the years that when I eat out and I'm eating, oils or hot oils, and I don't know the quality, I will notice that show up in my skin quality. I'll notice it show up under my eyes. So these are just things I've been into, just how do I take care of myself so that I feel my best for many, many, many years. And it's really beautiful also to be in an era of my life where I have my self-care tools. I have the things that make me feel good, but most of all, it's so rooted from within, because even for me, having a physical glow up last year, it didn't just come from all this external stuff. It literally came from healing. It literally came from letting go of a relationship in my life that was no longer aligned and that was just creating stress for both me and the other person. So it was just it really also made me see that lowering my cortisol and taking care of myself at a really deep core soul-based level, which also required a lot of really immense healing and letting go, was just it was really profound for me. And it was really in moments extremely intense, but through it, it's I just shed layer after layer after layer of fear, of past associations I had with myself in my life. And through it, I really birthed this whole new self-concept. And that self-concept is I am a woman who takes care of myself. I'm a woman who shows up and does my weight training. I go for walks. I meditate. I talk to God universe. I do my healing. I work on my recovery. My health is both internal, spiritual, energetic, emotional, mental, just as much as it's the physical outward things that I do to take care of myself and to be at my most confident. And even for me, this will sound kind of funny, but even for me, my clothing, dressing in a way that feels my best and dressing in a way that makes me feel my most expressed is one of like also the best gifts ever as I continue to get older. And I have, the stabilization of my business, and I have, more financial means. It's just like to be able to dress how I want to dress. When I was in my 20s and I was so broke, and I'm going to release an episode for you babes about my money transformation journey, but it's really powerful because that was one thing I used to visualize about, where I was like, I want to drive in a car that feels like good and authentic to me. And like, I want to wear clothes that feel like an expression of me and not just like things I have to wear because either it's all that I can afford or it's like someone gave it to me. Cause that was my life for a decade in my 20s. It was just like, no, I'm wearing this, or I'm driving this, or I'm doing this because this is all that I can do. And I also, in that episode, I'm really going to talk a lot about just staying with the process and the path of like unfolding your potential and what it is that you're here to do, even when it seems like it's just gonna take forever or no one cares. So we'll get into that, and I'll talk a little bit about like business and money too. But just to wrap like the health one, it's like I talk about this one first because health is everything. Like it is the foundation of every single amazing thing in our lives. If we don't have our health, we don't have anything. If we don't have our vitality, we don't have anything. And if we don't have a relationship, like I feel like you can be the most beautiful person physically or meet every beauty standard, whatever the heck they are, however they're changing, whatever is going on. But if you don't have a loving internal self-dialogue and a relationship to your soul, like that's not for me. And I've always felt that way also about money too. If you're standing at the edge of a major life, money, or business transition, and you know the next chapter requires a different level of support, this may be your moment to work with me one-to-one. There are 2 ways to do that. The first is my year-long total life transformation mentorship, a deeply supported journey where we work on your money, your vitality, and your visibility so the growth you create is embodied and sustainable. The second is my signature one-to-one money and business mentoring, focused strategic support to help you stabilize, grow, and lead your finances and business with clarity and confidence. Both are for women who value refinement and are ready to build a life and business with intention, time spaciousness, and depth. If you feel the call to work with me one-to-one, the application is waiting for you in the show notes. If I'm going to create my own version of success in this life, I want to feel fulfilled. I want to feel fulfilled and I want to feel love around me. Because if you're just like what I've found is like, if I'm just trying to achieve, and I've let go of my health and I've let go of healthy relationships and I've let go of my connection to God, then like, what does any of it matter? It all will fall very flat. And I think we see instances of that so much around us and in our culture, like a lot. So that's what I would say about health and some of the things that I do on an internal and an external level. And I just feel like health is everything, but health is also rooted from healing, and it's rooted from this internal relationship that you have. And like I said, my last year has really taught me that. And I don't know if I finished this thought, but the reason I got so gung-ho about my health journey was literally because of how sick my dad got. And he didn't exercise for a really long time. He literally just played golf. He always sat at his desk, and he didn't eat the best, and he was very, very thin. And so by the time that he got lymphoma, which is a form of cancer, the way that I understand it is that he just didn't have gas in the tank. And that was my concern about him when he got there, was that I was like, I said it to my mom and my brother. I was like, how on earth is daddy going to get through this? Because he just doesn't seem to have like the stamina and the energy and the physical vitality to be able to withstand these treatments. And he actually passed away after his 5th round of chemo. He had 1 more to go. And also you babes, and this is on the podcast somewhere, but I had an extremely metaphysical, very highly spiritual experience as my dad was dying. And that was really one of the gifts of that time, was just it was just remarkable how my dad like left. And it was really after I gave him permission. I was just like, you can leave if you're not going to get better. And he had a 6-month prognosis and he died within 24 hours of me having that, 48 hours of me having that conversation with his soul, because I could feel he was very in and out. But with the death of my dad, it really did bring me to this place where I just was like, I just have to take this seriously. This isn't even just about like an aesthetic thing anymore, which for me in the past, it was about that. I didn't like myself. I didn't feel good in my body. And I thought, if I just look a certain way, everything's going to be better. And that is not how it works. It is an internal job first. And it's a job that we do in love. And then we have the habits that we do out of love that help us take care and be our best version of self. And that's even why I talked about like my parents and how they look and their genetics, because the genetic lines that we incarnate through and the physical formations that we incarnate through, aka our parents and our ancestral lines, it's really fascinating because there's going to be, of course, unique sets of challenges and opportunities within the physical line that we incarnate through. And so it's important to remember that. And that's why I think the programming of societal norms can be so hard. And I'm just going to say this really quickly, and then I'm going to move on to I want to talk about some lessons and things that I've learned around like business and finances. But here's the thing I would say too, like when I was younger and I was moving to LA, the skinny thing was major. It was like Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, like it was like, how thin could you be? And I so fell prey to that. And so did so many women around me. I really struggled with an eating disorder. I literally made it a competition with myself, how little I could eat every day. And I also didn't have money and I was partying and using drugs at the time. So it was just such a mess. And I had such a disoriented, hateful relationship with myself and my body as a young woman. And I remember seeing someone's content recently. Is one of my favorite wellness, fitness girlies on Instagram. Her name is Kelsey. And I think her, oh my gosh, I'm spacing on her Instagram right now, but she has a workout app called Shape, SHAEP. She's been such a huge part of my health journey and my transformation. But I saw her do a reel recently where she was literally saying that the skinny thing is kind of like coming back around. And I was like, no, like the preying upon like women's sense of self with this idea that you have to look this one way, and it just comes and goes. It's like, and I think this is one of the gifts of social media, is that there is more awareness. Of course, it depends how your algorithm serves you content and information, but I do feel that there is more awareness and there is more thoughtfulness now around like body types and not fitting into one kind of mold and stereotype that the culture deems the one that's the most beautiful. And as women, I hope what I'm saying, that this is helpful and this is something that just gives you the perspective that your beauty is also based on what makes you feel beautiful, while also working within the miracle of the physical gene line that you incarnated through. And one thing that I say thank you for every day before anything is I say thank you for my body, and I say thank you for my health. I say thank you for my health and thank you for my healthy body. And even in the days when I don't feel my best, or I'm tired, or I'm bloated, or whatever, it's like my practice as a woman is still being in deep love and deep respect and reverence of the miracle of what I am. And that's a process for me still. I don't have that down pat, but it's something I think feels important to me, and maybe it feels important to you too. Okay, so some things that having like a business and like what I've learned about money over the years, 39 years. So number one, I'll make this one a little shorter because I'm going to do a full episode about like my money transformation and how I've had a business, and that's going to come out in like a month or so. And I'm really excited about that one. But what I would say is like, I started my first business when I was 19 years old. So that now at 39 is going to be a 2-decade journey. And my first business was a jewelry line. I had it for 7 years. I lived off of it when I got out of college. It's not like I ever did anything immense. I wish I had known I could have sold it. I didn't have that information at the time, but I had really built that up, and I had a book of business and I had clients, and I was in Fred Siegel, and Tyra Banks purchased a few pieces from me. Like I really got it rolling over the years, but I had such low self-confidence, and I was so afraid of selling. I was so afraid of seeming salesy and what people would think about me. And I was so ashamed that it was I needed to have sales, and I would just get so hard on myself because also living in LA. At the time, I lived around so much wealth and just people where everything seemed like it was just so easy for them, even though, of course, I had no idea the full story. But I really learned so much from that first business because I definitely followed my heart. I mean, I had a spiritual jewelry line. It's a very Venus and Pisces in the second house thing. So I had that for 7 years, like I said, maybe 8. I can never remember the exact number. I should go back and track it, honestly. But I really learned so much of how liberating it was as a young woman to have a business, even though it was very hard and it was very glaring, like when things didn't work out or my lack of confidence around certain things and how afraid I felt to fail. But one thing that I will say that was just so amazing is that when I started this business that I have now, I think the core takeaway I want to give to you and what I've learned in more of a high level kind of idea that I can give to you is you have to love something so much that even if no one cares for a really, really long time, you still care. Something that I see in my women and in my work quite a lot is wanting to have this magic thing that just shoots you to the moon. And not to say that that's not possible. Look, the way I've built things and the way I've done things, it's not the end all be all. And especially now with how much technology is changing and social media and the culture is shifting and Gen Z is really stepping into, the cultural spotlight, as will, I think it's Gen Alpha is after them, but it's just things will change. So it's I'm not saying that my way of doing things and the journey I've had and how long it's taken, I'm not saying that that's the end all be all. So please don't take it in that way. You'll have your journey. But one thing that I will say is from my perspective and my experience, it's can you love something so much that even if no one cares, you still care about it? Because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm 2 decades into being an entrepreneur. I'm 8 years into this business specifically. This podcast has existed for about 7 years. My membership, MWMM, has existed for about 7 years. I've been mentoring women for a very long time because even in my 20s, when I did tarot and astrology, that was a form of mentorship in its own right. And I just always was very entrepreneurial and I had a lot of ingenuity. But, I was telling my girlies in MWMM the other night because they were like, oh, I'm working my part-time job and I want to have this and I want things to materialize in this way in my business and nothing's happening and I want to build a community. And I'm like, yeah, my angels, just you have to remember where you are right now. I've been there. You just weren't there to see it because no one was there to see it and I say this with a little bit of humor because I'm nobody cared at that time. Nobody cared when I started my first Facebook group. I called it White Horse Healing. I thought it was going to be the coolest thing ever. No one cared. There were a bunch of different things I did that it just seemed like no one cared because guess what? No one cared yet because a lot of people, they want recognition quickly and they want success quickly, but your skill needs to be developed in such a way that you can deliver on what it is that you are asking for. And I think that that's a really important thing in business and doing business in integrity is you have to grow your skill set to have something to give and exchange and be of service within. And I just feel it's really cool because especially for me being a Capricorn ascendant, I'm very like time oriented. So that's why I say years a lot and I say ages a lot and different things like this, because that's so part of having like a Cap ascendant. It's just like very Saturnian. It's very like time oriented. But one thing that I'll say is it is amazing because what you can build over time is incredible. But the thing that will be the gas in the engine, just like what I was talking about with health, is that you have to have love in the engine, if that makes sense. It's like love is going to be the thing that perpetuates your movement forward. And I was listening to this really beautiful YouTube this morning, and I also heard Teresa Caputo say this not long ago, but she was saying something about how when she was stepping in with her gift, she literally said to, she's a practicing Catholic, as she says, but, God or the universe, she basically said like, God, if my gift can help people, then I am going to put it in your hands. And then of course she's got one of the most prolific careers next to like Tyler Henry and a lot of other really famous mediums. But it's like, I think that's such a powerful thing. And I say that prayer a lot because this is all like my journey with this business. Although it has not been perfect, it has definitely been from my heart, meaning that I'm like, I just know that I'm here to do this. And I haven't always done it perfectly. I haven't always done it the best and the right ways, but I have learned every single time and gotten better and humbled myself in moments when I needed to be humbled and healed when I needed to heal and expanded when I needed to expand it and taken risks when I needed to take risks and stepped back when I needed to sit my sweet little Aries butt down and learn some lessons and be quiet and get still and stop looking for the validation of the success of my business and actually work on myself and the internal dynamics of my life that had nothing to do with external validation. And so I feel like God will guide us through and communicate with us through all of these different unique means, whether it's our health, our relationships, our business, our finances. And that has been a really major truth for me. And then the one thing that I'll say around money and what I've learned with money is, I've had times in my life, in my business specifically, where I made a lot of money. And one thing that I've recognized is that making a lot of money means nothing if you don't know how to take care of money. And making a lot of money means nothing if you are avoidant or afraid of money. And so you angels know, and this is something I talk a lot about. I talk a lot about it in my marketing. I talk a lot about it in my podcast, that, making money doesn't solve money problems. People think that it does, and it's not totally incorrect. Of course, if you have debt and someone hands you a check for 85 grand and you pay it off, that's totally money solving that debt problem. But if you still have the habits or the fears underlying how that debt accumulated, then no amount of money will ever flush that out. That is an internal job. And something I brought into my work over the years is like this second house, eighth house axis in astrology, where your second house, and there's posts that I've done about this on Instagram. This is a really big topic that I'm teaching in the new up-leveled MWMM. I have past episodes about it, so there's content for you to definitely consume about this. So I won't go too deep into it now, but very simply, there you have what's called like a money access. You have your earned money, and then you also have like your shadow relationship to money and safety. And this is the second house axis and the eighth house axis. And this is really powerful because everyone has like a seen and an unseen relationship to money. Everyone has a relationship to money, myself included, that people see. And then everyone has a relationship to money that no one sees. Every single person, because we all have a second house, eighth house access. And everyone has a strategic, logical relationship to money. And then everyone has a very highly emotive, energetic relationship to money. This is the Taurus versus the Scorpio energy. And those are the two counterparts that rule the axis of money and possession in astrology. So that is something I've learned over the years, because I've had times where I made way more money than I needed at the time, or I got a windfall, or something really prosperous happened, or I quote unquote manifested something. And if I was not in the position to truly hold, handle, receive, and care and steward whatever it was that I was given or whatever it was that I created, then you can imagine what happened. And maybe you've had an experience like this, but I would say one of my most like harsh money lessons was, yeah, spent on cars, 2 different cars. And I actually had someone be like, never tell this story if you're a money mentor. And I was like, I don't need anyone thinking I'm perfect. I'm not. I'd say my worst attribute and the reason I built my money organization system is literally because of my spending issues and spending to get away from how I feel emotionally. And so in reference to those, like that avoidance and that fear, and also like the emotional addiction and escapism that I found in spending, I had to build something where I could start to steward, care, and anchor money so that I can circulate money and spend it and enjoy it while also caring for it and paying into my future and taking care of the business. And this is something I've talked a lot about over the years, or actually maybe not over the years, probably over the last year I started to talk about this, but where I'm now living on a completely cash basis. I only have one line of credit and it's in the business. So it has been a whole new universe for me to really live within the means of cash and what it is that I'm earning and what it is that I'm saving and what it is that I'm compounding. And that's been huge for me because as an Aries, especially an Aries with a Cap rising, when one of our shadows, and my money shadow in the 8th house is Leo. So the shadow aspect of that is inadequacy and like needing people to think a certain way about me. And I have utilized money over the years, especially when I started to make it and actually generate. Because like I said, in my 20s, I was completely broke and I was around a lot of wealth, both where I grew up and also in my 20s living in LA. And I always just felt like something isn't like there's something wrong with me, that like I haven't figured out how to do this. And so when I first stepped into making money, I feel like I really got some harsh lessons around spending on things that were extremely image driven, that I didn't know how to actually take care of and how to really steward. And like I said, when that person was like, don't tell anyone that you did that, I was like, look, I don't need to go into the nitty gritty nuances. Like in my mentoring, I do, and I've definitely talked about it in MWMM, but it's just like, I don't need anyone to think I'm perfect, and I don't need to be pedestaled as some expert. I'm not an expert. I'm just an educator, and I'm a student myself. Like I'm a student of process and I'm a student of my own life. And therefore, like there's no need for perfectionism in any of that, because I don't need you angels to think I'm perfect in order for you to hear what I'm saying. And if anything, I think that's why you babes have been with me, and many of you have been with me for a long time. And I've had the privilege of building this community with you because you know I'm not perfect and you know I'm learning right along with you. And I'm just willing to open up and share what it is that I'm learning in hopes that it helps you not make, big mistakes, or it helps you think differently about something, like better than maybe even I would have done in the same situation the first time around. Okay. So what I have learned around my family, my parents, my brother, I hope I don't get super emotional, but I might. We'll see. I have a lot of makeup on right now, but what I have learned about family is that family is everything. I now do not have my dad on this earth. I only have my mom and I have my brother, and we have deepened in our relationship and healed a lot. Something that I learned, especially as I stepped into recovery over the last year, is that I need to be accountable and responsible for all of my relationships and the ways that I treat people in my life, whether it's my family, who I have a lot of, emotional intimacy with. And probably in the past, we haven't had the best boundaries with one another, and we just kind of let it all fly. And even though there's been so much love between us, and I do have a very beautiful family unit, we've still had our dysfunctions and things that didn't that we just really had to learn the hard way, especially after my dad died, because it was almost like my mom, my brother, and we had to cultivate this whole new dynamic without my dad's scorpionic energy, his watery. He was just a very he had intensity to him, but he was just a very gentle being. I miss him every day of my life. If your parents are still alive and you have a relationship with them, I mean, take what I have learned from now not having my dad, just cherish it as best you can. It's so hard because when you have it, it's it's all you know what I mean? It's the crazy thing about death is in this lifetime, when someone dies, that is it. Other than maybe having spiritual experiences with them or visitations in a spiritual context, I will never physically see my dad again. I will never physically hear him talk to me ever again. And if I had known what I know now, there's so many things I would have done differently. And there's so many things I would have cherished about our relationship. And not everyone has the best relationship with their family. And if that is you and it doesn't feel safe or healthy for you to be in touch with your parents, I honor that and I understand. If you do, and you even feel like there's a touch of you that takes your family for granted in any way, something, even though death is such a morbid subject in our culture, which really it shouldn't be, but it's the number one fact of life other than taxes, and is that we are all gonna get out of here at some point, and we're not going to be here forever. But there's something about the touching of death that has really helped me just understand and see that life is precious and my relationships are important, and the way that I show up is important. If you're a woman who makes money or wants to make more of it, but still feels overwhelmed, disconnected, or unsure how to actually lead your finances, I created Magical Women in Money just for you. MWMM is where money meets self-trust, strategy meets intuition, and women stop outsourcing their financial power. Inside, I teach you how to organize your finances, understand your faulty money habits, align your earning with your astrology, and build a real wealth for your future without shame, pressure, or feeling like you're behind. This is a personal finance meets astrology method that works. It's grounded, empowering money work for women that feels approachable and soulful. Join the waitlist for Magical Women in Money membership, MWMM. The link is in the show notes. And I would say over the years, especially in the last couple of years, especially in the last year, I have healed my relationship to my family, to my mom. We have the most sacred bond, and we've both learned how to be more gentle and respectful of one another. And my brother and I, when we were younger, my brother and I have a 5-year age difference. I'm an Aries. I wanted to be an only child. So even when my brother got here, the day he was born, I was so pissed. I didn't want to have a sibling. And maybe anyone who's an older sibling can attest to this. I just did not want to have a sibling. And I was very hard on my brother for a lot of years. And we had a really rough dynamic. And now he is one of my best friends. And he has been, especially in the death of our dad, of our Papa Bear, it's we have cultivated a relationship with one another that is because even my mom and I, she's having her own experience in grieving the loss of her husband, whereas my brother and I, we are having a shared experience of my dad's passing as his children. And it's just very different. And it's been really sacred that we have each other. And I used to kind of always be someone who just separated myself from family. I always felt very different from my family. And that was very true because I used to tell my parents, like, you need to like include me and you need, because I'm very different. Like I am literally like, I am a very different being that just popped through this gene line. And they're like, who the frick are you? Like they kind of didn't know what to do with me. And it made me feel, in many years when my dad was alive, it made me feel very alienated. And I could always connect with everybody one-on-one, but as a group, I kind of just got overshadowed a lot. And I got a lot of my connection doing this, like having a podcast and having a community and having my business and living in LA and living in Southern California and having my friends. But what I craved more than anything was having that acceptance and like connection with my family and my parents. And especially over the years, and I know with my dad's passing, I know he's been guiding the family dynamic to heal on a whole other level. And it really has been. And my mom just came to visit me about a week ago, and we had the best time, the best trip, the best dynamic we've ever had in our journey together on this earth. And it took both of us. It wasn't just like her doing things differently or me doing things differently. It was both of us being intentional and aware and communicative and self-responsible and communicative most of all, and just really honoring. And we've learned a lot. My mom was 30 when I was born, so I'm 39. She's 69, I believe. Sorry, Mom. She always listens to these episodes too. So hopefully I got your age right. I always forget, but it's really powerful just how over the years, it's like our relationship deepens. And especially recently, my mom and I's relationship has just gotten better and better. And I'm so grateful for that, because now not having my dad, it's like, I see how important and how paramount it is to feel connected to my family, and how it's what I've always wanted. And it's what I've searched so many places to get. And it's just better than ever now. So a few things that I've learned from like relationships and romance, I actually shared quite a bit of these in my dating with divorce episode. But one thing that I will say is, number one, as a woman who's had many journeys and experiences in this arena, and not all of them have been like shining examples of what healthy relationships are. I've learned a lot, if anything, of what not to do. But what I would say very simply, and where I stand now, especially being so remarkably single and just, divorced and, 39, I just feel like I'm in this place now in like my relation to men, where my number one way of relating to them is through slowness and discernment. In my life of meeting men, and meeting boys and guys and whatever, like from being a teenager to being in my 20s, to being in, my 30s, being in a 6-year relationship, I feel like I allowed people to rush me, or I rushed. And if there's one thing I have learned that from the hard way, it's that rushing for me, I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but rushing for me is a no. Because if I rush, then I can't see who I'm being in relation to someone, and I can't see who they actually are. And I've talked about this in the dating after divorce episode, but also being in that energy and in that space of discernment of just like, wait, if I know myself and I respect myself and I love myself, then does the behavior of this person, does this feel right and correct? Because the truth is, my loves, and this is something I've also seen on social media, and this really resonates with me, is that like the masks start to come down after 90 days. Like if you're putting on a parade for someone and they're putting on a parade for you, which we mostly do because we want to be loved, we want to be connected to, we want sensual expression, we want human connection. And yet, what happens when we're just putting on like a song and dance, which is just a very natural part of human attraction, and just like, I'm perfect and you're perfect and we're all perfect. But it's just like, at the end of the day, you can't do that forever, because authentic human connection isn't vulnerability. Authentic human connection is also in the space and the spaciousness of just being human, and being in intimacy with someone means that they're not always going to see the best and brightest parts of you. But what I've recognized is that is all well and good, but, or maybe it's an and, are the values of mine and the values of this person in sync? I recognize one of my values is having vision. And one thing that I will absolutely require in the man that I step into a relationship with next, whenever that may be, is that he has vision and he can clearly, authentically express it to me from a place of truth and embodiment. And because I no longer disassociate, I will be able to see and feel, most of all, feel if that vision is authentic and if it makes sense for me. And I think being single and being alone, it's now been in June, it'll be a year since I stopped dating, then I can see I can be alone and I love my life. And like God universe has brought me so many gifts and just amazing friendships and beautiful opportunities that I know that discernment will be important for me so that I'm not settling. I definitely have settled in my life. I don't feel that I settled in my last relationship, but I have definitely settled in experiences before and having experiences with people who just like, I didn't know what my values were, so I couldn't really vet their values. And there's just a lot of messy lessons, especially in my 20s, living here and dating a lot of people and having a lot of different experiences. So yeah, this is what I learned. And I feel like with some of my best friends, we like flip-flop because I was single in my 20s and they were partnered. And now some of them are like, they were partnered and now they're like starting on this new leaf of their life, or even some of them are divorced. And it's just like really fascinating to see the unique lessons and calibrations, like the things they can teach me about choosing partnership, whether they're in a partnership or they learn through a partnership or many partnerships, and what I can offer them through being a woman who's had to like navigate and create and build her own way, and how I can contribute to their new leaf that they're on, no matter their age, but especially after a relationship. And I think the one thing I'll say with the romance piece too is just like, it's okay to move slowly. Like you don't need to go fast. Like this is something that like that 12 step has really helped me with. It's like, if something is meant to be in your life and if someone is meant to be in your life, you do not need to control that outcome. Like there is a plan in higher powers universe. And if you believe, and if you're willing to believe that this is a loving universe that has care for you, then you will understand at a deep core, visceral level in your body, in your spirit, that there's a plan for you and that the people and the places and the things that are meant to be with you aligned with that bigger plan and that bigger vision, they will be there. And you will have to heal and you'll have to do your footwork and you'll have to do your side of things, but you don't need to control the results. That is a divine intelligence's job. One of my favorite things, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I start thinking about stuff, I literally go, that's not for right now. That's not a 2 a.m. thought. That's not a 2 a.m. task. A 2 a.m. thought and 2 a.m. task are sleeping. Like that's not a right-sized thing for this moment. And so what is right-sized for you, my love, and something that's felt so true for me is that it's like, what is right-sized for me is like, I don't need to do the universe's job. I don't need to do God's job. I can't. I'm incapable. I can do my part because I have my job and I have my tasks to do. That's like the way of meeting the universe halfway. But when we're willing to meet God universe halfway, God universe will meet us all the way. And we don't need to finagle that and like move things. And that's been a really healing thing for me to learn in the last year. It's definitely brought me quite a lot of peace. And then the last thing that I will speak into is friendships and what I've learned around friendships. This has been a really, really tough area of growth for me. I think that I don't know that it's really culturally something. I think we talk a lot about divorces and breakups and, in relationships, but like, do we talk about also like how we can outgrow friendships or realize that certain friendships aren't for us anymore? That's hard. And it's not something that really gets talked about a lot. And I feel like for me, where I land now with friendship is that friendship is a safe place to land, and that friendship is a place for me to be the full spectrum of who I am. Like if I ever feel like I need to be super perfect to be someone's friend, to get them to like me and accept me or not belittle me, that's not a safe, right size relationship for me. If I feel like I'm being judged in a relationship, or if I feel like there's hot and cold or inconsistency, then I've just come to understand that that's not how I function. It's not how I ever want to function. If I was ever functioning that way, I would want feedback so there's space to repair. But I think being, 38, 39 and learning, it's really seeing through my track record, like who I am and how I show up in friendship. And it doesn't mean that I'm perfect, but it means that I know what I contribute, and I know who I am, and I know how I love, and I know how supportive I am. And I know that I want the people in my life to win. And if I ever don't, and I'm feeling jealousy or envy, then that is my side of the street to clean up. That is not someone else's responsibility to heal that or to make themselves smaller in order to make me comfortable. And these are things I've learned over time. Again, 39 years, that's almost 4 decades on the earth. And it's just, I've had a lot all the way from elementary school up until now of just really learning my value and learning what my side of the street is to take care for in my relationships. And I was telling my mom when she was visiting, I was talking her through about really, I have one of my best friends. I have a lot of Scorpio best friends, and they're very intentional, deep people. And I get this really powerful mirror from them often of just where and how I can be a healthier, more present, less one-sided friend. Sometimes I feel like as an Aries, I definitely can be a little more like the me show, and learning and maturing over time has been reciprocity is so important to me, and making sure that even in the spaces where I can be big and expressed, that the people in my life, the women in my life, that they feel like they have a space to be big and expressed too. And I also get to look at, something we say in 12 step is character defects. And that sounds like a really intense thing, but it's one of my biggest character defects is judgment and being judgy. And I've really learned how detrimental that is, not only in the way that I treat others, but I found that my judgment of others will literally become because I judge myself more harshly than anyone. And the more I'm healing and integrating and recovering through, my different defects and addictions and ways of addictive thinking and addictive habits, it's really shown me oh, no wonder I can be judgmental or harsh in moments, because look how I'm talking to myself right now. And so what I continue to discover is, if I want to be a healthy, reciprocal friend and also have healthy boundaries and healthy sense of self, well, all of that starts with me. And that also plays into the relationship with partners and romantic and dating. And yeah, it's just all of it plays a role. But I think one thing about getting older for me is that I start to really witness my track record, and I see the places I've fallen short. And I also see the places that I am really, really, really empowered and worthwhile. And the places that I fall short have been my greatest areas of growth. And I also feel I realized over the years is friendships, those for me are my soft places to land. Those are the places where I can be burning down and I can ask for help, and I can also share my wins and things I'm excited about. And those are meant to be the safe places, not places where you feel hurt or judged or confused. It's and that's also for me, in practicing in those values in this area of my life, also seeing that can carry over when I'm dating. If someone feels hurtful or confusing, or there's a value misalignment, it's I know that I can be with myself, and I trust in the abundance of God universe's plan for me. So I don't need to stay in a dynamic where we're not bringing like healthy characteristics out of one another. No, thank you. I've done enough of that. I've had a very intense journey, and I have a South Node in Libra. And so learning through relationships has been a really, really huge thing for me in this incarnation. So the last thing that I'll say, my loves, as I land this birthday episode is very simply, when I think about my 20s versus my 30s, my 20s felt like chaos. They literally felt like just so much intense work, so much intense stuff that I had to do and go through. And then as I moved into my 30s, I've really seen myself move from immaturity into maturity, from self-consciousness into self-knowingness, and really moved from like even like self-criticism into like totally reparenting my inner child and meeting myself in a way where like I meet myself with love, I meet myself with compassion, and I really witness the mirror of things. Whereas my 20s, I blamed a lot, and even a lot of my 30s, I would blame people, places, things for everything. And I feel like where I sit now is like accountability and like seeing my side of things and not being in the blame game and in the shame game, but seeing like, well, why did I call a certain experience or person into my life specifically? And for me, the answer that always comes from my deeper knowing is that that person or that circumstance was there to teach me and help me become better and help me to become more compassionate, or even to help me accept the bigger parts of me, the intense, fierce magic of who I am. And sometimes that's fierce anger, and sometimes that's fierce boundaries, and sometimes that's standing up for myself, and sometimes that's grace, and sometimes that's compassion, and sometimes that's surrender and like humility. So that's what 39 years have taught me so far, and the journey continues. I love you, my darlings. Thank you as always for tuning into this episode. Please send me a DM. You can wish me happy birthday at Natalia_Benson. And I would love to hear how this episode landed with you. I love you guys so much. Thank you as always for everything. I'll see you soon.